Hey, what is up, guys? My name is Cartoons, and today we're going to be talking about Moonkin. Obviously, this is still in its early stages for Legion Alpha, but I thought that I would give you my first impressions on the class since I've played it for about 8 to 9 hours or so, just to get the feel of the class, you know, what the clunkiness is, what the smoothness and the new parts of the class are, and I definitely want to share that with you guys. So let's go ahead and jump into it. How I'm going to be structuring this, I'm going to be talking about damage, mobility, defensives, and then like my bug experiences as well as my like failed class design experiences, because I feel like I have a pretty solid understanding of what they're going for with this class, right? And it's like this really odd mixture of healing with like hots, like rejuvenation and stuff like that, into obviously a bursty damage, but also have like an AoE pressure element to it as well. Even though it's not really the main focus of the class anymore. But let's go ahead and jump into the damage, just to start with. They changed the whole like solar bar, lunar bar thing, so that's no longer even in the game. It works off of procs now. So how it works is you build up this resource called astral power. It goes from 0 to 100, and this astral power allows you to either use Star Surge or Star Fall. And those two things are what expend astral power. Everything else does not, right? So what happens whenever you decide to Star Surge, right? So I'm going to just use a talent that allows you to get some astral power really quickly. Is if you use a Star Surge, you get these two procs that empower both your Lunar Strike, which is Starfire, and then your Solar Wrath, which is just Wrath, right? And those two things are empowered for one use only. These two abilities are spammable, so there's really nothing crazy about that, except for it's just changed. There's no lunar solar bar to manage anymore, which honestly, by playing the class, I feel like it's really not a bad thing. I like the proc system. I like the Star Surge to empower your abilities system. I think that's kind of cool. It's just there's a couple kinks that really need to be worked out, and that's something that I've written down in some notes that I have here on my laptop. That's why I keep looking down, by the way, is because the laptop. It's in my lap. It's on top of my lap because laptop. But yeah, so as for damage, your big damage cooldown is still Celestial Alignment. Really nothing crazy there. It's just Incarnation can be replaced, and obviously it does more damage. If you decide to use the talent, right? Incarnation, what it does is increases all of your damage from all of your spells by 40%, and it allows your Solar Wrath and Lunar Strike to generate 125% additional astral power, right? So, and it lasts for 30 seconds. It's a 3-minute cooldown. Personally, I think that the damage cooldown is obviously necessary to even have it, right? Every class has a damage cooldown like this, whether it's Recklessness, Icy Veins, Combustion. But the problem with it is the fact that it's a 3-minute cooldown, and I've explained this in other videos, especially the Frost Mage first impressions, that a 3-minute cooldown and a 30-second duration is really just like, I honestly think it's just not okay. I think that it should be maybe a 10 to 12 second duration with a 1.5 minute cooldown. I think that makes more sense for the flow of PvP during the entire game, as opposed to using all of your damage. So your enemies will have all of the defensives. You decide to use Incarnation, which is your 1 damage cooldown. You're going to use all of your damage. They're going to pop all their defensives, and then you both have to wait for 3 minutes while both of your cooldowns regenerate. And then eventually one of those cooldowns gets disaligned because you're able to pressure out multiple cooldowns. And it just doesn't I just don't think that is really I feel like that creates stale gameplay, because eventually you run out of abilities, and I can't express how many times, especially playing Moonkin, that when you run out of abilities to use in World of Warcraft PvP, you genuinely don't, you feel really dissatisfied. You really don't enjoy the fact that you don't have any more buttons to press that can allow you to kill the other player. And that's why I think that if there were shorter cooldowns, especially with Incarnation, maybe a 10 to 12 second duration, and then 1.5 minute cooldown or 1 minute cooldown even, I feel like that's a lot more healthy for playing being an active player throughout the entire game, as opposed to just waiting for cooldowns to come back up and trying to get other people to mess with defensive. That just doesn't make any much sense to me. And also, Celestial Alignment is on global cooldown. I think that this is just a bug. I would like to see this changed, obviously, because Icy Veins isn't on global cooldown, Recklessness isn't on global cooldown. what else? Like Chaos Blades from Demon Hunters, Void Form isn't good on global cooldown. Like there's so many, reasons why Celestial Alignment or Incarnation should not be on global cooldown. It makes the entire like surprise, I'm doing a ton of damage to you now thing go away, because you have like a whole second to see that Incarnation's coming out, whereas you can just pop Incarnation and then use Star Surges right away and get your damage out. I just don't think it should be on global cooldown. Pretty obvious cases for that as well. And what's interesting about the damage rotation is that Solar Wrath, throughout PvP, it's really not used because there's no way to cast it instant, since the Moonkin form is kind of bugged right now. The 15% chance to make your next damaging spell instant doesn't actually work. It doesn't activate ever. I've tested it for a long time now, and I've never seen any procs from it. So maybe Solar Wrath will be used more in the damage rotation if you are able to get that proc. But for right now, just without that proc, I've noticed that I never really use Solar Wrath because there's not really a whole lot of chances I get to cast Solar Wrath and not have Lunar Strike empowered, because obviously if Lunar Strike is empowered and I'm able to cast for 2 seconds, then I'm going to cast Lunar Strike since it does more damage as opposed to Solar Wrath, because Solar Wrath, even though it's a quicker cast, it does less damage while empowered, and I don't really have a whole lot of chances to cast, so that's why I would decide to use Lunar Strike over Solar Wrath. I don't really get a whole lot of chances to do that. And the Artifact Weapon damage ability is pretty cool. I actually think it's pretty interesting. So it's this development of something called New Moon, Half Moon, and Full Moon, right? So as you can see, there's this Harpy here, and you get 3 charges of this, Full Moon ability or Half Moon. It's actually not even supposed to be in Full Moon right now, but normally what it does is it stacks and does this like wind up ability. It's really cool actually. So right now it's a 15-second recharge, and I have this New Moon ability, which is a 1-second cast, and you can't interrupt it, which is good. So how you do this is basically you have 3 charges and you wind it up, you cast New Moon, right? It does like this small damage, and then you get to Half Moon, and then it does a little bit more damage and generates a little bit more astral power, and then you get to Full Moon, and that does like a lot of damage, right? That probably is the biggest damage ability you have. So as you can see, there's the Half Moon, and then you walk over to the Harpy, use the Full Moon, and then that does the most amount of damage and also gives you like a huge amount. I think it's like 40 astral power. So that's pretty sick, right? And once you're done with that Full Moon, it resets back to New Moon, and you have to build your way back up. So it's pretty cool. We're going to go ahead and move on to mobility and talk about that for the Druids. Really nothing has changed, so this is going to be pretty quick. The mobility of the Druid is pretty much the same. You just have Travel Form and Cat Form, which increase your movement speed by 30% passively. Pretty simple. You have Dash, which is a 3-minute cooldown for 15 seconds, and while in Cat Form, it automatically activates Cat Form. So, pretty simple. And then obviously if you choose the talent called Displacer Beast, then you're going to get a 30-second blink with a 50-second movement speed steroid for 4 seconds. That's pretty standard. You use Displacer Beast. I don't really see anyone using Wild Charge or Renewal over Displacer Beast unless you like really had to live. I'm not so sure about the whole let's put defensive cooldown and mobility cooldown in the same tree thing. I think that is really kind of weird. It's like, would I rather be more tanky or would I rather be faster? I think that all mobility talents and then all defensive talents should be in separate trees, right? They should all match each other. So this tier should be all defensives. Maybe this tier should be all mobility or something, but that's just my opinion. Really nothing crazy there. And I think that the mobility of Boomkin is actually pretty fun. You usually have something to do, whether it's like shifting in and out of slows or whatever. Works out pretty well. So no complaints there. And then as for defensives, you have Bark Skin, which has been in the game forever. It's just 20% reduced damage for 12 seconds, 1-minute cooldown. Awesome design, 1-minute cooldown, 12-second duration, usable while stunned. Really makes a lot of sense. That's cool. Good job. And then as for the other defensives, you have something called Restoration Affinity, which is pretty standard for Moonkins. You really don't take Guardian or Feral Affinity right now because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to do that in like a competitive PvP environment. Restoration Affinity gives you Swift Mend, Rejuve and Regrowth, and then also gives you Ysera's Gift on a passive 3% of your maximum health every 5 seconds, just a heal, which honestly I think that this part of the Boomkin is pretty interesting because it gives you a lot of different utility and allows you to off-heal your teammates really effectively, but it's not too much, which is great because I think that as a Boomkin you shouldn't be healing as much as a Resto Druid, obviously, right? Which is nice because when you use these these heals, they're really not that strong. Like, see, I'm being healed for like 1.9k, 12k, and I have 2 million HP. And I think that hybrids really shouldn't be, giving this huge amount of healing. They should be giving a, pretty medium amount of healing. And I feel like that this has been accomplished with the current numbers, but obviously the numbers are subject to change while in alpha. So, but I like it. I like the fact that, Boomkins can't heal a crazy amount, and that they have a bunch of abilities to heal a medium amount, which is nice. My only complaint though is for healing touch. Whenever you heal a target, it's a 2.35 second cast and only heals for about 76,000, whereas Shadow Priest and Ellie Shamans have like a 1.3 second cast, which does the same thing and a little bit more healing. I feel like if I'm going to commit to using a really long heal like healing touch, that it should be a faster cast or at least a little bit more rewarding. I just don't think that 76,000 for 2.5 seconds of cast time is really worth it. Regrowth is a 1.4 second cast time and seems to heal a lot, and then there's Rejuve, and then obviously you have Swiftmend, which is a 30 second cooldown, heals you for 150k, which is pretty good. Pretty solid heal for 30 second cooldown. But there is this talent, so I will give them this, is that there's something called Protector of the Grove, which allows you to, whenever you cast Healing Touch on an ally, your next Healing Touch will always crit, and then your Healing Touch cast time is reduced by 50%. That's cool, but at the same time, like, when it comes to duels, when it comes to 2v2, when it comes to you being focused and you needing to heal yourself, this has no use whatsoever, right? So this is under the impression that people aren't going to be hitting you. And I just feel like without that, you're really susceptible to dying, pretty much, unless you just bear form and hope your healer keeps you alive. But otherwise, it's fine. It's just my opinion based on the experiences by playing Ellie Shaman and Shadow Priest, which are similar hybrids. I think that maybe the cast time should be reduced a little bit. Just my opinion. And then as for just a couple more things, there's Fairy Swarm, which I feel like is a pretty cool ability. I just don't like the numbers involved. I think that movement speed by 30% is fine. It's just that the chance to hit by 50% for 8 seconds, I just think the 8 second duration may be a little bit too long, and that comes with a 30 second cooldown. I would rather see more of a 15 second cooldown and like a 5 second duration. I think that makes a lot more sense because it allows you to like pick and choose that 5 second window where an enemy is going to be doing a lot of damage, and then using your Fairy Swarm based on that. And I think that is like having a more like usable ability, except for a 30 second cooldown, is way more like valuable within an arena or PvP situation. If I'm gonna not take Cyclone, right, then I want Fairy Swarm to be like active, right? Because Cyclone is spammable, whereas Fairy Swarm on a 30 second cooldown for an 8 second duration just isn't worth it all the time. And I really have a hard time, gauging that kind of value, right? So I think that Fairy Swarm, if it was just reduced on the cooldown and also reduced on the duration, I feel like it could be a very valuable ability because you can really, mess up someone's offensive cooldowns with it. It's just that I want to be able to see it used more, right? So there's nothing really crazy with that. So as for defensives, that's pretty much it. Bear Form, you swap into that, you get a little bit more stamina, a little bit more armor. And then Moonkin Form, you have a lot of armor as well. So nothing crazy, guys. I think that they stayed pretty true to the Moonkin class. They just changed around a lot of damage things and how you build up and spend your damage. And my one complaint for the Astral Power, just like the generation of resources, I feel like it's great. Like, the system is awesome. I really like the Star Surge spending for Astral Power thing, and that's cool. But the fact the matter is that like you don't really generate Astral Power very quickly, and that really causes a lot of struggles for the class, especially since Starfall is 60 Astral Power and only lasts 8 seconds. I think that if they're going for this like AoE type of vibe where you have some AoE pressure with Starfall and like it empowers your dots, I just don't think that 8-second duration for 60 astral power is realistic within like a PvP rotation, or like doing damage at, you know, the normal amount of time, because there's so many situations where I would rather just Star Surge and get more damage out, because Starfall really doesn't do a whole lot more damage compared to Star Surge, and it takes 60 astral power. I think that there is a talent that reduces Starfall by like 10 astral power, but like I want to see it go down to like 40 or 30. I don't think that the ability is worth 60 astral power, and I think that it's really worth 40 or 30, especially with an 8-second duration as opposed to like a 20-second duration. Like an 8-second duration for 60 astral power is really hard to do, and I really don't, you know, have many ways to use it more than once in my rotation. And the only way I ever use it is whenever I use Astral Communion. It gives me 75 astral power, and then I put this down, and then I cast, like, you know, my moons, so my new moon, and then it gives me more astral power, and I'm able to Star Surge. But otherwise, like, I never use Starfall. So just my thoughts. But yeah, guys, you know, that kind of got all my opinions out for Boomkin. I feel like this class is pretty interesting. You know, I'll probably be playing it more in the alpha on my live streams and stuff like that, so be sure to check it out. And also leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe for more, and I'll see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys. Cartoons out.